You're listening to the Downeast Mike podcast, the quirky little podcast from Maine. And now, your host, Downeast Mike.
Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Good morning, everybody. This is Downeast Mike of the world famous Downeast Mike podcast, coming to you live from Downeast Maine, way down east. We're not anywhere near the mid-coast or southern Maine. We're Downeast Maine. That's why my name is Downeast Mike. I'm not really insufferable, because I do suffer, so you have to keep that in mind as you're listening to me. Listen, I'm hitting cables here in the morning. I'm all kinds of messed up. Today is Saturday, May 10th, 2025. Our motto, if you're new to the podcast, is some of this is whimsy, some of this is true, and the interpretation of it all is entirely up to you. And the Downeast Mike podcast contains absolutely no mean words, just wholesome goodness from Downeast, Maine. In today's episode, we have a gas station closing, inflation at 8.5%. That's from 1979. We have U.S. and Britain discussing tariffs on this day in 1933. Boy. Volcano suicides from 1933. That's not from Maine, although we do have a volcano here and there. And Swedish immigrants arrive in 1890. What else do we have? We might find something else along the way, but we're going to roll right into this day in 1979. And the U.S. Senate overwhelmingly rejected President Carter's proposal to close gasoline stations on Sundays, and it forced the White House to rewrite for the second time its standby gasoline rationing. This is the time they're rationing gas, and they did not want to close the gas stations on Sunday. A coalition of rural and western senators attacked that system as being unfair to their constituents, most of whom do not have mass transit facilities, and most of whom drive great distances to work. They gave as an illustration, in Maine, for example, the average motorist drives 10,728 miles a year and uses approximately 1,000 gallons of gasoline each year. That level of driving is 5% greater than the national average, and you should see the way they drive in Maine as well. Also, Treasury Secretary Michael Blumenthal was forecasting the inflation up to 8.5%. And he says the Carter administration had screwed up in predicting that inflation would be held to 7.4%. He says it's going to be 8.5%. Times were really tough in 1979. Thank God I was in a daze then and not really aware of it. Even Sears had an advertisement in a local paper, an open letter to Sears customers. Here's what Sears and rubbish, don't you know? Here's what Sears will do to help fight inflation. To support you can start waving your flag now if you want. To support the nation's efforts to curb inflation, Sears will voluntarily take the following actions. Effective Tuesday, May 1st, 1979, all prices in the Sears Spring General catalog will be reduced 5% until January 31st. Yes, this means that a discount of 5% will be automatically taken off the price of anything and everything you order out of the Spring General catalog between May 1st and July 31st. And that was in 1979. And then they note, in effect, thousands of most wanted items already competitively priced in our catalog will be even greater values with this automatic 5% price cut. And they go on and on about how they're helping out with inflation. Watch for these values on television, radio, and magazines and local newspapers and benefit from these price cuts. Each month, Sears helping out patriotically with the inflation situation in the U.S. in 1979. Here was a story about your phone. This is quite interesting, and you look at it through a our phone situation today. And the headline was, "Is your phone obsolete?" And this was, we found it in the Bangor Daily News from Sylvia Porter. It was a kind of an editorial type story. "You've splurged on a new living room couch. You're waiting for the new broadloom in your favorite design to go on sale," where they could have gone to Sears. You're saving money for a new refrigerator in yellow to match your kitchen. Everybody has yellow refrigerators today. He says, "Have you looked at your telephone? American Telephone wants you to feel yours is out of fashion to stimulate your fashion consciousness for new phones in a variety of new styles and an assortment of colors. It's our traditional American way to create greater demand and more jobs via creating built-in obsolescence. But in addition to high-fashion style changes in phones, new services are in the pipelines or on the drawing boards." And here's getting exciting here. "The Advanced Mobile Phone System, AMPS, a mobile phone service that provides the same high-quality service as phones in your home or office. With this system now on trial in Chicago, customers can call literally anywhere without the worry of busy phone channels or fading, a problem associated with the mobile phone of today." So 1979, they were promising clear phone communications, which you still can't get. "AMPS eliminates the problems of congestion via use of a sophisticated transmission technique, which will make it possible for all of us to own a mobile phone in the future." Imagine that. 1979, they're talking about us all owning cell phones. "About 2,000 randomly chosen customers are involved in the trial. In Chicago, the mobile units cost between $45 and $60 a month. That's about what it is today. Solid-state electronics are now at the nerve center of the Bell System Communications Network." They're going to go on there. "You can program your local switching office to forward calls to a neighbor's house or the hairdresser, and it can be done from your home." So you call the hairdresser and say you're on the way, and then have your calls forwarded there. So if you get a call when you're at the hairdresser, you'd be all set. That was mobile phones in 79. Call waiting, they were talking about. It's a signal you can arrange to have sound when you're on the line and another caller is trying to cut in. Three-way calling, they had speed dialing, integrated circuitry, a method via which the phone company is offering its customers phones with solid-state memories. These are touch-o-matic phones that store and dial numbers at the touch of a button. When you push the appropriate button, the phone dials the number. Imagine that. And that feature actually was an additional $8.50 per month. They also had Picture Phone Meeting Service, a visual communication system. As of today, it links picture phone meeting centers in 6 cities, New York, Washington, Chicago, etc. The cost ranging from $2.50 to $6.50 a minute for video chat, basically. Not too long ago, a picture phone meeting service wedding reception was held between Chicago and New York. Of course, they had video phone calling at the World's Fair, and AT&T did back in 1929, so they, again, not really progressing all that much. What else did they have on the phone here? You take along your phone directory with you, measured service, personal long-distance calls in non-business hours, take advantage of time zones. Of course, today you have unlimited dialing for the most part. If you have a roommate, a phone usually is installed under one person's name who's responsible for paying the bill. If either roommate moves before the end of the month, the signer for the phone is responsible for the whole bill. Settle up before you split up. You also note, hang up on obscene calls, call your service representative, and ask for assistance. Don't permit a dialogue or try to identify the voice by conversing. It only encourages the caller. What if you wanted to continue the call? What if it was fun? Let's look at another story. We're going to go back even further here to 1933. This is where they're talking about tariffs between the U.S. and Britain. The Premier touches on debts and declares our aim must be a permanent settlement. Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald in London announced in the House of Commons today that there was every prospect of reaching an agreement between Britain and the U.S. as to the advisability of an immediate tariff truce. There have been further exchanges of views with the U.S. government, the Prime Minister said, and I'm now in a position to say that subject to the settlement of actual words, they sure can get wordy. There's every prospect of reaching a deal, basically. Talking tariffs in this day in 1933. Well, here's a little bit lighter subject. We found a couple of cars, very handsome Plymouth cars, and they illustrate the example of people who might need these cars and how they'd use them. Curtis Elliott, New Rochelle, New York. He's very proud of his Plymouth. He's got his suit on and his hat, and he's got a foot jauntily up on the sideboard. He's leaning on his Plymouth. Curtis Elliott had been looking at cars for months. He has to drive about 75 miles a day, so economy is important. Then along came Plymouth's radio announcement, a four-door, six-cylinder sedan for $510 sounded good to me. Today I'm driving a standard Plymouth. Well, thanks, Mr. Elliott. We think there are a lot of people who are looking for this kind of car. It's got all the features that made Plymouth famous. It's a 70 horsepower 6 on a 108-inch wheelbase. Does anybody know what a wheelbase actually is? With patented floating power engine mountings, hydraulic brakes, safety steel bodies, rigid X drop-down frame. These are the kind of ones they converted into, like, demolition derby cars, didn't they? What a thrill these new standard Plymouth six pieces are. People used to think that Plymouth was higher than the very lowest priced cars. Today, they're as low as the lowest. And the four-door sedan is today's lowest priced six-cylinder four-door sedan. Go see a new one today, $445. Isn't that something? And then the upgraded one, WW Major was the example here. In Detroit, people get the latest facts about cars even before they happen. So when Mr. Major heard that Plymouth was going to bring out a new long wheelbase car, there's that word again, it sounded like just what he wanted. I'd been driving one of the other low-priced cars, said Mr. Major, but I decided to look at the new Deluxe. When Mrs. Major saw that car, it was all over. It's bigger and smarter looking than others, and that's why we bought it. And that's a real compliment coming from a Detroit automobile buyer. The Deluxe is longer, 112-inch wheelbase. It's the world's biggest, lowest priced 6 in inches and in value, with freewheeling, all-silent transmission, automatic clutch at a slightly extra cost. That was the Deluxe Plymouth. That was $495. A floating power engine mountings, DuPont safety glass windshield. Wow. All right, here's kind of a sad story. Well, it's a really sad story, actually, but seek to stop suicides at Japanese volcanoes, a headline. This is on this day, 1933. 55 young men and women have leaped into the crater since February 11th. Because 55 girls and young men have committed suicide at Mount Mahara on Oshima Island, 50 miles southwest of Tokyo since February 11th, the Oshima police have asked the Home Office for reinforcements. The normal staff of 12 policemen has prevented scores of persons who were seeking to kill themselves, but effective patrol of the huge volcano is impossible. The crater's sheer sides are more than 1,000 feet deep, and the bottom is always hidden in flames and vapor. The bodies of suicides never are seen again. The sensational suicide of a schoolgirl on February 11th brought Mahara into the limelight, and it became the favorite suicide spot of the lovelorn and the life-weary. 6 youths jumped to death in the crater since last Sunday. All the recent victims were under 28 years of age, and the majority were in their teens. Japan's suicide rate is always high. The beautiful Kigon waterfalls near Naiku used to be the favorite spot for persons desiring to die. They went there from all over the country. A volcano. Go jump in a volcano. It's awful. What else do we have from 1933? Fresh Gulf gas. You're talking about gasoline in this ad here. Why does stale gas give less mileage? Why does stale gas mean more knock? Because the highly volatile light ends, the most important parts of gas, have evaporated. I started the lawnmower a few days back, the pull mower, and it started right up. That gas had sat there all winter. It burned it up quite nicely. Take a tank full of fresh Gulf gas. It doesn't cost a penny more. See if you don't get a more powerful, smoother running motor. And then they give you 5 important facts about fresh gas. On the basis of months of experiments, done independently, of course, Gulf offers these findings to motorists. It starts faster, it gives you more power, it gives you more mileage. They talk 23 miles to the gallon. Fresh gas is higher in anti-knock ratings than stale gas, and its cleaner burning contains less motor fouling residue than stale gas. I guess they had to find some way to differentiate themselves from the competition. Here's a story about a boy that went to Portland looking for work. It's an example of how hard some are looking for work and what a tough break government red tape is handing out to some. A boy just at voting age, an orphan, living at Presque Isle, decided that he was going to try a shot at the forestry station, and he hit the road for Portland. When he arrived and handed out his birth certificate to prove his age, he was greeted with the announcement that he would have to prove that the certificate in question was really his. The boy had no friends in Portland, Maine, no money to wire home for help, so he was unable to prove his identity. The result was that he was turned down. Penniless, he started back home over the road and landed in Auburn, his feet badly blistered and his entire physical condition bad from want of food. He told his story to interested persons, was given meals, a night's lodging, and if the red tape cannot be broken and work be secured for him, he will be given assistance to return to Presque Isle. Well, along the notes of the cars, you had some used cars listed, repossessed cars, a Dodge and Sport Coupe for $485, a Willys coach for $165, a Ford sedan for $35, or a Chrysler, it's a 1926 model, Chrysler four-door sedan for $45, and that was at Androscoggin Motor Sales, Inc. Better used cars for less money. Anything here fancy? A Graham Deluxe sedan, $395. An Austin Coupe for $100. A Dodge panel truck for $250, and that was at Guavin Motors in Lewiston, 1933. Here's Charles Turney. He was deported by Canada in 1933. They're kicking people out. Man who has relatives in Portland alleged to be a diphtheria carrier. It's a story out of Buffalo, New York. An American branded by Canada as a diphtheria carrier was deported today to the United States by way of Buffalo. Everything about the story sounds depressing. The man, Charles Turney, 55, was escorted across the international line where local health authorities took him to the city hospital. Turney has refused to tell where he lived before he entered Canada. Officials quoted him as saying his mother and a sister lived in Portland, Maine. Here's a story about a teacher frustrating a Vermont kidnap plot. A lot of stuff going on there. St. Johnsbury, Vermont, 1933. Teachers in a grade school today defeated a parent attempt by a father for years estranged from his wife to kidnap his daughter. A teacher, overhearing the conversation of a man who was telephoning in a corridor of the school, suspected a kidnapping plot and made an emergency call to the police. A police squad, headed by Chief John Finley, arrived before the man left and took him in custody. He was found to be a Canadian and was turned over to the immigration authorities. His name was withheld pending an investigation. What exciting times in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. Here's a story. We're going to go back to 1890. Burglars entered Louis Stone's grocery store in Biddeford, Maine, Thursday night. They broke open the cash drawer, but they found only 11 cents. They drilled into the safe, but did not use enough powder, and the explosion did not open the safe. They next stole a few cigars and some candy. And there was a watchdog in the store, but they made friends with him. I bet they gave him some candy. The tools used in drilling the safe were stolen from a blacksmith shop half a mile away. Well, if nothing else, they're pretty innovative. The U.S. cruiser, this is a shipping story, the U.S. cruiser Philadelphia has just made nearly 21 knots an hour on her preliminary trip. The engines of the Philadelphia are built on designs furnished by the Cramps, and the contract calls for a speed of 19 knots per hour, no horsepower requirement being contained therein. There's a premium of $50,000 for each quarter knot in excess of the contract speed. The builders will notify the Secretary of the Navy of the result of the trial as expected, that he will at once appoint a board and name the day for the official test. 21 knots an hour on a big ship, 1933. John Thompson, the game and fish warden, I like to say fish and game warden, I think it sounds better. He seized 5,000 or 6,000 lobsters, give or take 1,000, at Lincoln in the town of Boothbay Harbor, of which 5% of those lobsters were less than 9 inches long, reports the Pemaquid Messenger. So they had a short lobster at that time was less than 9 inches. That's a pretty good sized lobster today. Over 1,000 New York cigar makers are out on strike and they want higher wages. There's a report that the woolen mill in East Dover will start up in the near future. And these are little short stories. It was reported that a vein of black marble has been discovered near Fincastle, Virginia. There's none found elsewhere in the U.S. I wonder where that black marble is today, if it's being used anywhere. And our story about Swedish immigrants, or immigrants here, a dozen or 15 Swedish immigrants passed through Bangor Tuesday night on their way to New Sweden, Maine, where they will settle. Another party of Swedes arrived on the same train, but they were going for Monson, where they will work in the slate quarries. They are good immigrants to have. A little bit condescending, but... All right, that's our news stories, and let's look at we got a fish here we wanted to look at. We got thinking about these little guys. The rainbow smelt, Osmeris mordax. Rainbow smelt, also called the freshwater smelt or the American smelt, just a little fish. They reach a wide variety of sizes. In many lakes, they grow up to 3 to 5 inches, depending on the food and the competition, the growing conditions. The smelt in northern Maine lakes average 6 to 8 inches in length, and some Maine lakes grow smelt as large as 14 inches. It's funny when you go out fishing, sometimes you can catch a smelt mixed in with the other fish that you're, like mackerel and who knows what, but it's funny to pull a smelt in there too. Their body is long and slender with a large, elongated, pointed mouth. They have strong teeth on jaws and tongue, with fewer than 75 scales along the lateral line. I know I've counted them. Color is silver with a green back, and iridescent purple-pink and blue reflections on the side. Very pretty little fish. Here's a story we found. This is a Matthew LaRoche from the Maine woods. He's talking about dipping smelts. One of the primary factors triggering the smelt run in water is water temperature. 42 to 45 is ideal. And it says, a good friend of his, retired game warden Charlie Davis, once told him that when the frogs start peeping in the spring, the smelt are running. In northern Maine, the smelt run usually occurs in early May, so right now. It's been my experience that the smelt run occurs at or just before ice out in the lakes of northern Maine. A good place to ask if the smelt are running is the local sporting goods stores. However, this information may be a few days old. I can see going into a big box sporting goods store and asking if the smelts are running. They look at you like you had three heads. Smelting is one of the rites of spring for many die-hard outdoorsmen and women. And this guy says he enjoys getting out there and dipping a few of these silvery delicacies each spring. Dipping smelts is not for the faint of heart, because more often than not, the trip turns out to be waiting beside the brook for a couple hours with a harvest of only a handful of smelts to take home. Well, you got to wait for the tide to be right, I guess. Sea-run smelt that grow to maturity in the ocean and run up freshwater streams to spawn. They're caught by hook and line in a shanty along the tidal sections of rivers and streams. And then the second type of smelt and focus of his article here is the landlocked smelt, commonly called the rainbow smelt. Let me get down to his recipe here. When he talks about cleaning smelts is not much fun. As a matter of fact, I once have cleaned 2 quarts. I don't really want to eat any that night. I have a friend, Steve Day, who doesn't bother cleaning his smelts. He just fries them, heads and all. I have eaten them cleaned and uncleaned, and there really isn't that much of a difference. And his recipe is a traditional method of cooking smelt. Mix flour, cornmeal, and Cajun spicing in a plastic bag. Put enough of the silvery little fish in the bag to fill the frying pan. Throw the fish away and eat the pan. No, then he says fill the frying pan. Then shake the fish in the bag till they're well coated with a mixture. Drop the smelt into a skillet of hot cooking oil and fry until they're cooked. And then scoop them out of the pan with a slotted spoon and drain on paper towels. Serve hot. Sound like, well, anyway, that's smelt fishing, smelt cooking. I think that's our podcast for today. I've berated you enough for one little Saturday. Till next time, this is Downeast Mike wishing you and your loved ones a day that's full of grace, love, and kindness. We'll see you.
Taking my board, headed for the beach, where all my troubles will soon be out of reach. It wasn't too long you had me down, 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 reminding me that I'm a cowboy on the wrong side of town. Oh, I'm a blue water cowboy. Salt waters are running in my veins. Yes, I'm a blue water cowboy. On that wide blue ocean I ride. Watching the waves roll in. Another tide, another day goes by. And later on we'll go for a ride, ride, ride. That open highway never lies. Oh, I'm a blue water cowboy. Salt waters running in my veins. Yes, I'm a blue water cowboy. On that wide blue ocean I ride. Oh, I'm blue water cowboy. Salt water's running in my veins. Yes, I'm blue water cowboy.